The true danger that we're in currently in America isn't it's not right versus left, it's not Democrat versus Republican, though there's tension that's palpable between those two groups. It's not even necessarily the economic fallout. It's not the, you know, record unemployment. It's not the staggering economic figures. It's not even the fact that New York is now projecting 1 in 6 restaurants won't survive before the end of December, and now that's changing to 2 in 6 by the start of 2021. And those are all very serious things, whether it's right versus left, or, just the systemic across the board damage to businesses and business owners. The real damage and real problem that's happening in the Americana landscape right now is that we're in an incredibly compromised position. And what do I mean when I say we're in a compromised position? Because that sounds all mysterious and vague. In this historical moment that we're in, other nations are watching us because we have a giant neon sign above our whole nation that says, hey guys, we don't have our shit together, so do what you want. People are watching, meaning nations and geopolitical entities, are watching us in this moment of chaos. To us, it's like a shitstorm, and it's kind of comedic, and it's terrible all at the same time in the American drama of itself. And this is something that I talked about in book 3 in Depopulation that I wrote. Trump will eventually pass, Pelosi will eventually pass, Schumer will eventually pass. The players change on this board. Like, the players change, but the game remains the same, no matter who's playing it. But it's about, unfortunately, Republicans and Democrats can't look past themselves. In this present moment, it's, oh, those damn Democrats don't want to work for anything and they want everything for free. And then it's, on the other side, it's those cruel Republicans, they're just really sticking it to the little guy right now. Because the truth is, regardless of which side you're taking, Donald Trump had the Dow Jones collapse by 600 points today when it closed. It started with 300 points, then it went to 600 points because of 2 tweets that he sent out saying he was going to delay the stimulus checks until after the election, that he had told his representatives to stop talking about a deal and close it off until after he got elected, which is incredibly sick when you consider, and I don't care about your allegiance, whether you love him or you hate him, it's sick simply for the fact that the little guy is down here struggling so hard right now, barely able to get by, barely able to keep electricity on. And we're now pawns because Donald Trump wants to do damage to the left because of the nonstop drama between Democrats and Republicans. That's not fair, and it's simply not right. Send aid to Americans who are needing it immediately. Don't play any more of these horseshit games. And I don't really care what anyone has to say to the contrary. Wrong is wrong, and that is totally, completely wrong to say, well, after I get elected, we'll see about maybe a stimulus check. Send the goddamn money now. It's the right thing to do to all these businesses that are going under. 3 days before he gets put into the hospital, he's talking about, we need to pass the deal, we need to get another stimulus, we need to get another bailout going for people. And then to turn around, less than a week later saying, forget it, we'll wait till after. Horribly wrong, especially with the widespread level of damage that is happening and that people are hanging on by their fingernails down here. But I digress. That's not the point of all of this. The point is not only are we compromised in an unfortunate position, but other nations, beyond all the political theater currently happening and everything I just discussed, other nations are waiting and watching like a crocodile in the water. And let me use a less sinister reference. Other nations are like those Facebook friends that we all have that are friends with us, that don't like anything that we post, that don't care about anything that post, that don't even like us, but they watch everything we share, post, and put on media. That's kind of the relationship that United States has to other nations right now. We give all this aid and foreign help and assistance to these countries, and they smile at us, and then they talk shit about us as soon as we leave the table. There are nations watching us, specifically pointing to China and Russia. And, to back up even more, we know before even the 2016 election and Hillary and, the whole Russia scandal that's been on, that both of those geopolitical powers have been interfering. And, you can speculate all day of what they're trying to do and what the ultimate aim is, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what they're trying to do or what pawns and pieces they're trying to push across the chessboard by quote-unquote interfering. It's the fact that our gates are wide open. That's what's the true issue. Excuse me. I had a gummy bear. Of all of this is that our gates are wide open to foreign enemies and foreign powers to fuck with us right now. And because we don't have strong centralized leadership, because we have a bull in the china shop, because we have a leader who would rather tweet and yell at people at 3 in the morning rather than a leader who can kind of get the cojones to pull the country together, the big issue is Republicans and Democrats are so polarized and heated at this point that nobody's paying attention to anything outside of those two groups. So in the moment, our attention, being scattered in 100 different ways, and Twitter, social media, Facebook, we're not looking at the possibility of what could happen. Because when we talk about being compromised, it leads itself to the idea that we're open to attack. But in the modern world, we think of attack as, missiles flying through the sky and bombs going off and a nuclear warhead exploding. But it doesn't have to be that level of extremist. True attacks aren't really warheads, even though those, incur great economic devastation and population destruction and just pure evil. Real attacks aren't done in the open. They're done in the shadows. They're done sneakily and stealthily. You don't see it coming, and you don't see it until way down the line that something went on here. And so to tie all these different elements that I've talked about opportunistic attacks by other nations, opportunistic thresholds for other countries to have a vantage point to weaken us further, because we keep stumbling. I mean, we've been stumbling and stumbling and stumbling. All it would take is for one country to put their foot out, and we trip and fall, and we don't get back up so easily. But the thing is, the reason why I mention all of this, to tie it all together at the final point, I'm going to use a different country as reference. This may sound strange, but you'll get what I'm saying by the end of this. I remember back in 2001, right after 9/11, right after the World Trade Towers went down, World Trade Center went down, and we had invaded Iraq and Iran. They had found these documents at this Iraq camp, at this Al-Qaeda insurgency out there. And, a lot of it was just kind of handwriting in the desert and manifestos of how they hated America and yada, yada, yada. But in the middle of these documents, there was a theoretical manual of how to dismantle America. And I'll never forget it, because this is what they said, once it had been translated to English. They said that the way that you take down America, or any country of America's sizes, they admitted the concession that they couldn't take it on directly by aggressive force, that America was too big of an entity in power to directly kind of lead a charge against it, that they were too small of an organization, meaning Al-Qaeda, and that they lacked the military prowess and technicality to pull off such a feat. But they said that the way that you really destroy America is by introducing chaos, strife, and unrest, essentially, internally. You let America dismantle itself from within, and then, once America's in a weakened state, then you move in to make your move. And those words back from that 2001 Iraqi camp have haunted me, because we're in that boat now, but we don't realize it. We don't realize, because this is so absurd, that we're in a historical moment is happening right before our eyes. And people never realize that they're in a historical moment until the historians jot it down later on, to go kind of askew Nazis, Nazi Germany. Germans didn't realize that they were in a historical moment that was life-changing until after it had all happened. But we're in that boat right now of a massive historical moment, but because of the technological landscape that we exist in, we don't really see it as that, and a lot of people are just apathetic and don't care. There's just kind of general sense of, because of COVID and because of race tensions and because of the distrust between both parties and between citizen and country, a lot of people just don't care. But we're sliding, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. We're sliding down a slippery slope right now. And the thing is during times of stress and unrest and internal division like this, you absolutely do need strong leadership to be able to pull all these different elements together to kind of wrangle the country back together. Because, we always have these speeches of unity and we need to come together, and they reference Lincoln and they say, a house divided cannot stand, from his famous Gettysburg speech and all that kind of rhetoric. But it's bigger than just coming together, which is probably impossible at this point. It's the fact that when we fight each other in the way that we're currently fighting each other, we're distracted because we're so at each other's throats and watching the theater unfold. We're not realizing that anyone could slip in through the back doors and do massive damage to us at this point. And that's kind of the central theme that, I wanted to talk about in book 3, that I'm trying to talk about now, because I recognize that a lot of people don't like to read. But it's like, listen, people, Republican or Democrat, centrist, moderate, independent, whatever the fuck you are, You need to realize that you fighting each other doesn't really get anything done, and you're not converting each other to the cause, quote unquote. But we are in a massively compromised position that if somebody really wished us ill will right now, all they got to do is step in. In a historical context, when you look at how civilizations and empires fall, Rome was weakened from within too, and we share a great overlap, let alone tradition that we've carried from Roman society that becomes, elements of democracy and, Senate House. Those things were Roman ideals. But when you look at how Rome specifically fell and how barbarians eventually invaded it, was weakened from within multiple times. When you have systemic shockwaves internalized happening inside of an entity that slowly weakens it over time, there's nothing to stop another country from stepping in and invading. And, I don't really think we're at that point of Russia and China barging in through the gates, but these countries don't wish us well, for sure. There's no getting around it. It is that crocodile in the water. So we got to be careful because, back in 2016, there was all this talk of, well, we got to drain the swamp. We got to get rid of the swamp, but we're in the swamp right now. And we need to tread very carefully because the ramifications of what can happen while we don't have a leader, we don't have a captain at the wheel of the ship, we are in danger of hitting a political iceberg. And we don't realize it because we're so busy arguing with each other. That's how America falls. It's not a nuke. It's not a missile that comes soaring through the sky. It's not a bald eagle set on fire and something horribly unpatriotic. It's not flags being burned. It's the damage that we do to each other that eventually collapses it. That's how America falls.